Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Gons. Welcome to a Canary Cry flyby in the style of the Face Like the Sun channel, soon to be returning. Go to canarycry.party for all the links to everything we have going on over in the Canarium. I'm going to go over a story today that I couldn't get to during this week, and I'm going to take it from theindependent.co.uk. We're going to jump right in. The headline is CIA found the Ark of the Covenant by using psychics, declassified files claim. Remote viewer number 32 allegedly uncovered the gold-plated chest believed to house the 10 Commandments. Now, this is taking the internet by storm at the moment, and I'll fill you in on a little bit of what they say here. Declassified CIA documents claim that the mystical Ark of the Covenant was located by a psychic decades ago in the Middle East as part of one of the intelligence agency's experimental secret projects in the 1980s. The Ark of the Covenant was thrust back into the spotlight as globe-trotting archaeologist Indiana Jones attempted to uncover the artifact in Steven Spielberg's 1991 Oscar-winning Raiders of the Lost Ark. Interesting how they always have a film associated with these CIA projects, especially concerning remote viewing. According to Jewish and Christian traditions, the gold-plated wooden chest housed the 2 tablets bearing the 10 Commandments, which God, in theology, gave to Moses between the 13th and 16th centuries BC. I like that, independent.co.uk. In theology, this is what happened. The CIA conducted experiments as part of the secret project Sunstreak with individuals known as quote-unquote remote viewers, a type of clairvoyant who claimed they could project their consciousness to receive information about far-away objects. There is no credible scientific evidence that remote viewing exists, other than the fact that the CIA tapped into this alleged ability for decades, perhaps even more, which is generally regarded as pseudoscience. And they have some screenshots of the document here. In a remote viewing session on December 5th, 1988, remote viewer number 32 was tasked with identifying the coveted Ark, according to CIA documents recently circulating on social media. The documents were first declassified in August 2000. They allegedly did not know the object they were being asked to find. The psychic described the location in the Middle East that they claimed housed the object and said it was being, quote, protected by entities, per the CIA document. Quote, target is a container. This container has another container inside of it. The target is fashioned of wood, gold, and silver, they said, allegedly not knowing that they were trying to find the Ark. Quote, similar in shape to a coffin and is decorated with seraphim. Interesting that they knew it was seraphim, this remote viewer. They didn't know they were looking for the Ark, but they knew what a seraphim looked like? That's interesting as well. Some pre-knowledge there. The declassified document shows several pages of drawings depicting one of the 4 seraphim standing out on the corners of the Ark, along with a drawing of mummies lined up on a wall. And there's a real crude hand drawing of a bird, phoenix, I guess a seraphim. Quote, visuals of surrounding buildings indicate the presence of mosque domes, they added. They said the object was hidden underground in dark, wet conditions. Quote, there's an aspect of spirituality, information, lessons, and the historical knowledge far beyond what we know, remote viewer number 32 continued. They described the Ark as being protected by entities that would destroy individuals who attempted to damage the object. Quote, the target is protected by entities that can only be opened by those who are authorized to do so. This container cannot be opened until the time is deemed correct. The remote viewer continued. Quote, individuals opening the container by prying or striking are destroyed by the container's protectors through the use of power unknown to us. So, of course, the CIA is looking for the Ark of the Covenant because it has all the implications for all the monotheistic religions. It's a very important artifact. Now, I think this topic being circulated now in social media as part of the declassification, the transparency, the golden age, has a lot of implications, and that's not by surprise either, at least for me or people in the Canarium. This is a topic that's been around for a long time. Now, this topic inevitably brings up the topic of Ron Wyatt, who is an amateur Christian archaeologist and explorer who claimed to find the Ark of the Covenant in a cave beneath the crucifixion site of Jesus near the tomb, the Garden Tomb in Jerusalem in 1982. He claimed that the Ark was in pristine conditions and that it was hidden in a chamber with other temple furnishings. And he also claimed supernatural aspects to the Ark, saying that there was dried blood from the crucifixion site dripped onto the mercy seat of the Ark. And it goes even further, where he asserts that he had the blood tested and that it contained only 24 chromosomes, 22 autosomes, plus one X chromosome from Mary and one Y chromosome from God. And Ron Wyatt also claimed that God forbade him from publicly revealing the Ark until a further time. Now, of course, there are skeptics in this process here. Obviously, the lack of evidence when it comes to establishment science. They say there's no credible archaeological or even photographic evidence that's ever been produced, and maybe that's part of the thing. Maybe this is the revealing process here. There's no independent verification, meaning no archaeologists or other institutions confirming the discovery, which is no surprise here. Access denial. The Israeli authorities and religious officials deny knowledge or permission for such a find in the Garden Tomb area. But, of course they would. That's not a surprise either. Scientific improbability. The alleged DNA findings defy basic genetics and were never submitted to peer-reviewed journals. And yeah, that's one of those things where, of course, again, will it be dismissed as an anomaly? Will it be dismissed as incomplete information? Who knows? Again, this is very difficult to verify or cross-reference or at least vet in terms of the validity of it from people that would otherwise be skeptics. And if it was true and if it really had that kind of weight, it might have to go through the rigors of such a process. And I believe, ultimately, we will come to those points of time when the Ark of the Covenant is presented publicly. I'll get into more of that in a minute here. Wyatt was a self-taught amateur without formal archaeological credentials, and many of his other claims, including the discovery of Noah's Ark, has been widely disputed. So again, it's a point of contention here, whether you believe he actually found it or not. And if he did find it, where is it now? I mean, did it get confiscated? Who knows? I haven't dug in too deep to the Ron Wyatt story enough to really say one way or another, but I would argue that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because in the end, a public presentation of the Ark of the Covenant, I believe, triggers something much bigger, a much bigger eschatological conflict / revealing / tension / everything, just the whole thing. It brings the entire topic of the Abrahamic faiths right to the forefront, and that is Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And I'll get to that again in a moment here, but let me just give a little bit more here, because the other strange part of the entire topic of the Ark of the Covenant, at least in recent years, is that the current president, Donald Trump, allegedly has a replica, is what he says, of the Ark of the Covenant. In January of 2024, a photograph surfaced showing a gold replica of the Ark at Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence. And of course, it caused all kinds of public speculation. The one that's on the screen now, for anybody wondering, is the one with Laura Loomer standing next to it. But there were other influential people in the conservative circles and MAGA and stuff like that posting pictures next to this alleged replica of the Ark, which of course adds to the entire mystery of Trump and the esoteric side of his entire persona, which we've gone through over the years many, many times. Now, of course, there are pretty detailed descriptions of the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible. You have the size and shape outlined in Exodus 25, verse 10, where it talks about it being 2.5 cubits long and a cubit and a half wide and a cubit and a half high, with overlays of pure gold on both sides, inside and out, and making a gold molding around it. And of course, it just continues here throughout that passage, talking about the materials, the features, the contents. In verse 22, though, interestingly enough, it says, "And I will meet you there above the mercy seat between the two cherubim." And that is apparently where you have God able to appear in one way or another. Very interesting. In Joshua chapter 3, it says, when the feet of the priests who carry the ark of the Lord of the earth, touch down in the waters of the Jordan, its flowing waters will be cut off and will stand up in a heap, which suggests not, people have said a supernatural type of thing, but maybe there's some kind of electromagnetic or some other property here happening where water literally somehow is moved or is suspended in some way because of the presence of the ark, which is very fascinating. Of course, the ark was used in Joshua 6, where it was carried around the walls of Jericho, which eventually went down because of the ark, which suggests, again, some kind of supernatural power as always commented on, but perhaps there is some element of electromagnetics or vibrational energy power, all that kind of stuff that sounds woo-woo and new age. I would argue that there is some sort of biblical or godly way this stuff works. It's just that, when man takes a hold of it and abuses its power, it can go awry. And that's part of the issue here with the entire new age, new thought type of movement, is people thinking they have more power than they do and not submitting to God as the ultimate authority. Instead, you yourself trying to portray some kind of power or authority. This hubris that I'm talking about here will become more evident as we talk about the eschatologies between Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And the connection of the ark to the Nephilim is very fascinating as well. It happens through the ark afflicting the Philistines in 1 Samuel 5. In verses 1 through 4, it talks about the god Dagon, the pagan god Dagon, fallen on his face before the ark of the Lord. So they took Dagon and returned him to his place. And this is interesting because, of course, Dagon was a pagan god worshipped by the Philistines and other ancient Semitic peoples. It's often associated with grain and fertility and later depicted as a fishman hybrid, which, dag meaning fish. And of course, people have tried to connect this with the fish as being the symbol for Christianity. And so this is some kind of Jesus reference. But actually, I think this is the opposite. Now, Dagon is considered the father of Baal in Ugaritic texts. So from writings that are even before the Bible, Dagon is described as the father of Baal. And so here we have Dagon basically powerless in front of the Ark of the Covenant. So it's very interesting how the god Dagon, one of the gods, principal gods of the Philistines here, was defeated not in battle, but literally in the presence of the ark, which is consistent with the theological statement about no gods stands before the Lord, meaning Yahweh is superior to all these other gods at the time. And in 2 Samuel 6, we have Uzzah touching the ark, being struck dead because of it. And so it shows that humans just simply cannot willy-nilly walk up to the ark and touch it and move it around. It was very specific. And while it's been commented as simply being supernatural, perhaps there was some kind of mechanism going on here with this ark, how it connects to heaven, how it perhaps creates a wormhole. I mean, who knows? Because if God is able to appear above and mathematically and science and modernity and everything, wormholes are possible. Maybe this is how the whirlwinds were created, where certain individuals in the Old Testament were carried away and things of that nature. So it's not all New Age nonsense per se. It's really in who you are saying is the author of it all and who is in control of it all, which, as a Christian, we say God is in control of all of this, and it's of no business for man to really be doing anything unless you are led by God to do so. And that really brings me to the topic of how this affects the three monotheistic faiths. And I'll reference the post I made on X at FaceLikeTheSun. CIA remote viewed the Ark of the Covenant? Here's why this topic is the key to ignite Jewish eschatology, Islamic eschatology, and Christian eschatology. And of course, X summary of the whole thing, CIA documents hint at 1988 discovery of the Ark of the Covenant. Recent social media posts have circulated claims originating from declassified CIA documents suggesting that the Ark of the Covenant might have been discovered in 1988 through a secretive remote viewing program known as Project Sunstreak. The documents detail a session where a viewer reportedly made contact with what was believed to be the Ark. Despite the intrigue, no physical evidence or official confirmation of the ark's location or discovery has been publicly substantiated. Now, first, in Jewish eschatology, the Midrash Tenkuma Pekadai 7 suggests the Ark of the Covenant was hidden by King Josiah along with a flask of manna, Aaron's rod, and the oil of anointing under the Temple Mount in a secret chamber. So, interesting how this somewhat overlaps with the ideas of where Ron Wyatt allegedly found the Ark. And furthermore, commenting on 2 Chronicles 35:3 and Jeremiah 3:16 through 17, the Midrash also suggests that the Ark of the Covenant will eventually be restored. Quote, in the future, the Holy One, blessed be He, will restore it to Israel. And in 2 Maccabees 2, verses 4 through 8, it suggests that it was rather Jeremiah who hid the Ark of the Covenant near Mount Sinai with the important relics there. And it was also to be hidden until, quote, God gathers his people together again. Now, these aspects from 2 Maccabees, as well as commentary from the Midrash of 2 Chronicles 35 and Jeremiah 3, it's all very important because it all suggests that the ark was hidden by either Jeremiah or King Josiah, but the point being that eventually it will be rediscovered and it will become public again, and it will be part of the mechanism or verification process that Israel is restored, that his people are gathered together again, etc. And keep that in mind. Again, this is coming more from Judaism and mystical Judaism. So it's not Christianity, it's not biblical Christianity, although, again, Old Testament passages are quoted and commented on. Now let's move on to Islamic eschatology. According to Islamic eschatology, the Ark of the Covenant, Tabut as-Sakina, is mentioned only once in the Quran. The Tabut, the Ark, is described as a divine sign of legitimacy and authority, and while considered speculative doctrine, the Sunni Tasfir, which is an exegesis, suggests that divine signs similar to the Ark may return to affirm the Mahdi's legitimacy in the future. So again, Islam is waiting for the Mahdi, and the Mahdi will be verified by perhaps something like presenting the Ark of the Covenant. And in the Shia Hadith tradition, they also echo this idea, saying that the Ark, along with other ancient relics, quote, will not be seen by anyone before he, the Mahdi, appears. Okay, so very similar in use case and utility between Islamic eschatology, where it's speculated that it will be used in the future or discovered or presented at some point as a way to validate the authority of the Mahdi. And at the same time with Jewish eschatology, same thing. It's going to be presented at some point to validate the return of righteousness of God's holy people to Israel, etc. Now let's move on to Christian eschatology, because this splits into a couple different things that I think is important to point out. In the Bible, the Ark of the Covenant in an eschatological context is only mentioned in the book of Revelation 11, verse 19, where it appears in heaven. Then God's temple in heaven was opened, and the Ark of his covenant was seen within his temple. So immediately I want to contrast how the Word of God reveals the Ark of the Covenant in an eschatological sense appearing in God's temple in heaven, which is opposed to the Islamic and Jewish eschatologies that suggest that the Ark will be presented on earth somehow, like a rediscovery of some kind, to validate authority for Islam or for Judaism. Very interesting. Now, to confuse things a little bit, of course, there's always confusion. Remember who the author of confusion is. In Catholicism, there's something called the Marian eschatology. Now, this Catholic theology combines Revelation 11:19 and parts of 12 to suggest that the Ark of the Covenant symbolizes Mary, and that the woman in Revelation 12 is both Mary and the church. And so the argument is that Mary is the Ark, and she's the heavenly temple. And I say here that the only issue with Marian eschatology is that Revelation 11:19 mentions the ark within his temple, not that it's the temple itself. Hence, Mary cannot be both the ark and the temple, although I suppose allegorical symbology can bend anything into place. Basically saying like, look, yeah, it doesn't make logical sense, but of course, when you're talking about interpretations, people can bend things however they want to make it fit some kind of narrative. But I would argue that this is maybe a nice way to pay homage to Mary, as the Catholics like to do, but not necessarily helpful or necessary in the context of this discussion. I'm only mentioning it because it's a nuance there. The only place where Christian eschatology actually even addresses the Ark of the Covenant in some kind of end times sense, other than in Revelation 11:19 itself. So if we compare Judaism, Islam, and Christianity in an eschatological sense, we have Judaism awaiting for the third temple to be built, whatever it may look like, either a physical tent or an actual temple with sacrifices starting within the temple and the alleged presence of God returning within it based on the Ark of the Covenant being a major indicator. So a physical, earthly presentation of the Ark of the Covenant. In Islam, same thing. The Ark of the Covenant will return as a sign before final divine victories associated with Saul and divine favor. But then, of course, the contrast in biblical Christianity, where it's seen in heaven in the book of Revelation, and a lot of commentators over the years have suggested a typological fulfillment in Christ as the true mercy seat when it comes to the Ark of the Covenant. And then, of course, in addition, there is the Catholic Marian eschatology, who suggests that the Ark is a type of Mary instead of a type of Jesus, if you will. So in conclusion, the significance of the Ark of the Covenant cannot go ignored, and the fact that the CIA is looking for it with remote viewers is no surprise, especially for people here in the Canarium. Clearly, this is a topic that can unleash several versions of what it means and how it's supposed to play out. So that's my big takeaway here, where the appearance of the Ark of the Covenant will certainly ignite conversations about divine authority, God, his presence on earth, the Messiah, all these things that come from the monotheistic Abrahamic faiths. And if it's being presented to the world, and Christians, or at least, biblically sound Christians or people that have studied the Bible, if they look to the Word of God as the authority, they come out and say, well, it might be the real ark, but it says in Revelation that it's going to appear in heaven. So unless it's going to be taken up to heaven in some kind of rapture event or something, whatever is presented on earth might be some kind of counterfeit. Could this be part of the counterfeit signs and wonders? Could it be part of how even the elect might be deceived? If the Ark of the Covenant shows up, most Christians might be like, hey, there it is. They're not going to look much deeper into it. Hey, there's the Ark. I guess we're all just merging the monotheistic faiths back together. We're going back to Old Testament days, pre-Jesus, and we can all get together and agree on something, and maybe this is it. Maybe the Messiah is back. Now, along the way here, a lot of end times eschatological events can unfold, biblically speaking, at least the biblical narratives of what the Antichrist does and his wars against the enemies of Israel, things like that, because the current Temple Mount being occupied by Islam, and of course the tensions in the Middle East ongoing, it just asks for supernatural intervention that can really get a lot of people to get excited about God, but maybe in the wrong context, depending on the worldview you are approaching this topic from. And I say it especially because with the topic of new thought really entering into Christian circles today, which is a type of new age. It's really Gnosticism, and really it's just Genesis 3, the serpent's lie, repackaged for the modern church in 2025 here and beyond. Something like the discovery of the Ark of the Covenant can really get everybody pumped up in a way that can be deceptive in spiritualizing these types of events. So what do you think all of this means? Are you surprised the CIA is looking for the Ark of the Covenant? Do you think they've found it? And how do you think the technology side of it also will play into this? Again, this is where the deception really creeps in my opinion. It's the technology, maybe it's tapping into quantum realms or some kind of quantum mechanics that will scientifically verify the quantum field theory and maybe even assist in building the quantum computers. I mean, who knows what types of application and utility this will bring. All we know is that it will have significant implications when it comes to the faith, especially of the three monotheistic religions. And again, I point out and I highlight the only people that might be saying, no, not real, can't be real, are going to be maybe the Christians that know their Bibles and know that Revelation 11:19, where the temple of God is opened, and there it is. There is the Ark of His covenant. Of course, there's a lot more to this, and I can't tackle every nuance and every detail and every rabbit trail when it comes to this topic. So if you have more thoughts on it, definitely leave it in the comments, whether you're on X, YouTube, Rumble, wherever you may be, or just listening on the podcast version of it. Leave a rating and a review on whatever podcast player you're listening to. Such interesting times we're living in. I implore you to stay grounded in the Word and stay watchful. Have an awesome day, guys. God bless, and think outside the cage.